And Rich, you saw there's a brand new Ford Mustang coming out next year?
Oh, I did not see that.
Yes, the 2018 Mustang. There's a change. They only have a 4-cylinder engine and an 8, but there's no 6. So they have the EcoBoost 4, and then they still have the 5-liter V8 ballpark. Yeah.
Wow.
You think Intel will ever just stop making 6-core procs?
A client just asked me that. They were like, for our licensing scheme, should we, avoid 4-core and 6-core? They said, because you think Microsoft is going to push Intel to stop making those because of the licensing change for Windows Server 2016. And I'm like, it turns out Windows is not the only operating system. There are others.
Get out.
Really?
And it turns out the other ones let you use whatever processors you want, and they don't charge you. Wow. Blawbeater on Twitter asks, do I remember correctly if you're looking forward to the new John Wick movie? Yes.
Oh, absolutely.
Yes, absolutely.
Those are such cool-looking movies.
Oh, visually beautiful. I don't like kung fu movies. I don't generally like action movies, but man, that one, John Wick, wow.
Yes, that's a good one.
And for those of you who haven't seen John Wick, I know you're going to get one look at Keanu Reeves and you're going to think, oh, it's like The Matrix. No, it is what they call gun fu. It's like kung fu ballet, but with guns. It's all about just elegant moves with guns and shooting things. It's just utterly beautiful.
But here's how you know it's a good Keanu Reeves movie. It's because he doesn't say much, right?
Yes.
All the good Keanu Reeves movies, he doesn't say much.
And he has the angry expression the whole time. Yeah. Not a lot of laughs in John Wick.
No.
Wes Crockett says, hi all, it's my first time here. Really pumped that you guys do these events. So I'm recently back in a DBA role, back in the saddle again, after a few years out of the DBA world. Now I'm more curious about what you went and did and what you came back for. It's just interesting.
All right, the management thing didn't work out for you, buddy.
Yeah, you went to go to a developer and realize that the frameworks change every 6 weeks. He's like, man, give me some ANSI SQL. I'm not too bright.
Real programming sucks.
Stop moving my cheese, damn it.
He says his new employer wants him to obtain an MCSE. Do you guys have a recommended approach to getting there? What books do you think would be valuable, self-study, whatever? So we should all tell our last time that we got a cert and then how we studied for it. So going from left to right, Richie Rump, when was the last time you got a cert, and how did you study for it?
I think I took the 2008 tests, the SQL developer stuff. I think I took that. I think that was the last time I took that. Before that, I think it was the PMP that I took. But the SQL stuff, I actually just took it. I didn't study, didn't do anything. I think I may have read one thing on XML and that was it, and just went in and took it.
Mm-hmm. All right. How about you, Eric?
The last certification I got was an A+ cert in 1998 or 1999, and I got it by putting together some computers. That was my studying. I basically plugged stuff in and wrestled with interrupt requests, and then I had an A+ cert. I could put CD drives in, and CD burners were super popular.
They were. Is this the reason why you just built your new desktop? Are you trying to renew that? Are you trying to get your
Yes, totally. I'm trying to get back on the A+ fast track. Getting to get back in their good graces. My career's at a little bit of a standstill right now.
Eric, I hear the cloud has computers now. Maybe you want to look into that.
It does, but they're super slow.
They are.
Just the slowest darn things.
Tara, how about you?
I don't have any certifications. I once or twice took a practice test for the MCSE, and I failed miserably. I mean, not failed miserably, but I failed. I think I got like a 60% on it. And I'm just a terrible test taker, and it would be hard work for me to pass these things. And I already had an established career when I was doing this, so I didn't see any need to do this. So unless your company is requiring it, or maybe the next job is going to require it, I really don't see the need to get certifications.
Yeah, I'd much rather just get books that cover topics that I'm interested in, or books that cover topics that I actually apply to my job. For instance, this thing is constantly on my desk.
Calvin and Hobbes?
Yes. I have every single Calvin and Hobbes book. Every single one. One of them is signed.
Erik the Empire?
Whoa! By Calvin or Hubbs?
Both.
Oh, wow, dang.
I went with left hand and then right hand.
Yeah,
Okay.
I tried, and I can't remember if it was 2012 or 2014, which one it was, that I was like, oh, let me go see how they are now. And then, fail. And I'm like, wow, man, because I'm reading the questions, and I'm like, I know some of these are wrong, are just completely and utterly wrong. So, yeah, it's not big fans of certs. Lee Townsend says he ran into way too many paper tigers with certs who couldn't actually do the job.
Yeah.
Kelly
Another
says,
thing that sucks.
Okay.
Oh, sorry.
No, well, Kelly says, good answer, Tara. I agree. I don't hire folks based on certifications. I prefer experience. Go ahead, Erik.
Yeah. So what I was going to say, what sucks is that, like, because it's a Microsoft exam, they really try to cram new features on you. So it's like you're sitting there learning about, Hackathon and change cat tracking and CDC, and it's like all this other stuff that, practically you are not going to use and you are not going to, have to apply in your job. So that's my other kind of gripe with them.
Every time I sit through one of them, I'm like, I don't know what percentage of the DBAs in the world have to do the things that are shown on this exam. I don't understand what their job is like. That's not that doesn't measure what I do. Wes says that when he did his intermission in his career, he went over and did systems engineering, QA automation, and data analytics. I would also be curious as to what brought you back to database administration.
Money.
Money. That's probably true. Feig says, how about a project of a Brent certified DBA? Not no, but hell no. We don't like taking certifications. Writing those questions is even worse. It's no, God, it's hard. I like doing interviews and just letting people talk about what they're good at. Like if I ever did a certificate, it would be something involved with doing an interview and going, yeah, she hardly drooled at all. Yeah, it's good.
Actually, we did kind of have fun. I think like around about when I first started, me and Kendra did those quizzes. It was like one on indexes and one on T-SQL. Those were fun because they were just like, here's 10 questions. What do you think? And, no one got a badge or a smiley face or a gold star for taking it, but it was just kind of I don't know. That was kind of fun because it was just a cutesy little thing. If it was like an actual cert, I would run.
Wes says he came back for money for one reason, but he also found a job in an industry he loves. I know that always makes me feel like I'm less like working when I'm around another company. We did the Group Buy conference, and one of the presenters is a database administrator for, the way that he said it is, the Formula One team with the red cars and the yellow prancing horses. I was like, you lucky diabolical. Tammy asks, when we do SSRS installs, should we put that on a separate server? Right now, some of our servers have everything on one. I don't think that there's security concerns starting with 2014, and I kind of want them on the same server for licensing purposes, but I don't want to make a bad choice. We have VMs, so I could easily add more servers if I want. Should I put SSRS on a separate box?
I think of SSRS as like a third-party product. Just because it says SQL Server in the name and it's written by Microsoft, it's totally different than SQL Server. Think of it as a third-party product. Would you install a third-party product that isn't supporting the SQL Server, isn't doing, net backup or supporting software for SQL Server? Would you put a third-party product on your database server? And I wouldn't. I want my SQL Server dedicated to the databases. And nothing else except supporting software. So I always put the reporting services service or any other services that I need on a separate box. Yeah, you've got additional licenses here, but the best practice is to have a dedicated SQL Server.
Well, with VMs,
if you can support it on the VM and you can add resources, you're not having any problems, sure, do it. But I've worked in corporate environments where we're just very careful with how things are, how we're designing things, and making sure that we have a dedicated SQL Server.
Yeah, I mean, so if you're licensing enterprise, you have to license at the host, and you can spin up as many guests as you want. If it's standard edition, then yeah, you have to pay per guest. So that I don't know if that changes how you think about things.
James says he ran SP Blitz and he noticed that there was, and I'm guessing this is SP Blitz first or Blitz who, he noticed that there was a sleeping query with open transactions. Does that cause blocking?
I logged in.
Does that cause blocking? And if so, how do I resolve it?
It could. If you do like begin tran and you insert update delete and then you walk away, you'll have a sleeping transaction that could cause blocking because you're still holding on to those things, those little pages and locked and whatnot.
Run SP lock and then the SPID number and see what resources are locked, and if anyone else wants to get access to those same resources, they're going to be blocked.
So another option is if you're failing mechanic-y, you can run SP who is active, and you can use the show sleeping SPIDs parameter variable argument, and then that'll show you anything that's asleep. It'll show you what's going on there. Also, I think we recently added that to Blitz Who. I don't know if it's got pushed out from the dev branch yet though.
Oh, that's.
But if you can run Blitz Who if you're feeling particularly attached to us. Show sleeping SPIDs there as well.
And I love that SP Who is active also has the get locks parameter, and it'll show you exactly what people have locked on. It's fantastic. JH says, when I apply a SQL Server service pack or hotfix, on some machines it reboots, on some machines it doesn't. Is there a reason or way I can tell when it's going to reboot and when it's not?
It's just whether or not the files were locked, and if the installer could, if the files were locked, it's going to require a reboot in order to for the installer to make changes to those files.
Yeah. Oh my goodness. Robert has a big long list with a checklist, a question with a checklist. Your best bet there is definitely to post that on Stack Exchange. As you see the slides rolling past, this one right here, it says if you have a multi-paragraph question. The reason why I say that, because this isn't really multiple paragraphs, you've laid it together pretty nicely, but I bet you the smart answerers over there are going to do a beautiful job of injecting more steps. I like where you're going. It's very good, but just throw it out in dba.stack exchange. You'll get even better details. Oh, Raul asks a question, what is the best to use for resolving SQL performance issues? Now, he gets a little tricky there because he ties us down to only two things, and I'm not sure I would use either of them. SQL Profiler or extended events?
You got to be careful with those, buddy.
Yeah, why do you have to be careful?
Observer overhead, sir.
Yes, Schrodinger's profiler. Yeah, so the more instrumentation you add, the slower your SQL Server is going to go. Especially with, Erik has a great demo with functions, how scalar UDFs and multi-statement table-valued functions, as they're running, when you turn on Profiler or even set statistics IO, boom, just unbelievable overhead. So what would you recommend using instead? Anything we would recommend starting instead of Profiler or extended events? Because it sounds like he's after queries.
Sure. So I would start with our tools because that's the cheapest way, right? You can check out SP Blitz Cache, and you can check out SP Blitz Index, and you can check out SP Blitz. Those will give you pretty good general idea of with the state that your server is in. And then from there, if I really needed, eyes on my server constantly, I would just buy a mature monitoring product. I wouldn't sit there trying to roll my own, or sit there trying to get an extended event session right, or hope that I can get Profiler kicking and working. That's just me though. I'm lazy.
So many jokes there about an immature monitoring product, but I'm not going to go there. It's like Beavis and Butthead watching your servers. Tim Smith says he has a 4-node SQL 2012 availability group. 2 of the nodes are in DR, 2 of the nodes are in his primary data center. Was my best way to create a plan for the DR for our distribution replication, our distribution database. He's put the distribution database in here too, which, is that even supported in an AG?
So he does say 2-node failover cluster instance, so the distribution database is not on the 4-node AG. He's got the distribution database on a 2-node regular failover cluster instance, because yes, you're right, distribution database is not supported availability groups, so it has to go into a failover cluster instance. So, I've had environments which had the availability groups across onto a disaster recovery site, and we had replication involved. You'll have replication at the primary site, you'll have the distribution database at the primary site and a distribution database at your DR site. When you do the failover, you're going to want to run scripts to recreate replication. So, and once you do that, you're going to point it to the distribution database on the other instance. So you're going to run replication scripts to redirect it. I don't have those scripts memorized, but yeah, once you're ready to do that failover, I think we dropped replication on the first site, did the failover, and then added it back, pointing it to the new location of the distribution database.
I made a face like it sounded horrible, but as I'm thinking about it, I'm like, it's disaster recovery. It's not like you do this every day.
It's the same process you would do if you move the distribution database to another server at the primary site. Just think about what those steps are.
Yeah. Adam says, we have CDC set up using a secondary file group, and on some databases the file size eventually grows to match the size of the primary data file. What could be causing this? Well, Adam, I think the answer is in your question, CDC. I don't have any experience with CDC. I don't think, do any of you guys? No.
Mm-hmm. I use change tracking, but not CDC.
Michelle asks, where do you post BrentOzar.com jobs? Well, they're in the SQL Server agent, right? If you expand agent, then you expand jobs. No, we're not hiring now, but when we do, we post a blog post. Normally, we snipe Tara out of nowhere, just
out of the blue, like bam.
Get in here. But then generally, we post it out on the blog. We post it out on the blog and let people apply in public. No, and we're not just trying to get you to read the blog. That's just because it's the easiest way. There's like 100,000 of you that read that thing. Most of you aren't qualified. That's okay. We'll find one or two good ones. We'll go from there. Cody says he recently attended a seminar talking about performance tuning with weight statistics. Something touched on, but they didn't go into depth with it, was what good tools are out there to capture weight stats. So when you guys are looking for something to capture weight stats, what do you think about using?
Extended events. Just kidding.
Profiler? Not Profiler?
So I stick with our stuff. I'll go with Blitz first. Blitz first, you run it for you can either do since startup and it'll show you your weight stats since startup, or you can do it for a 30-second or some other second sample, and you can get weight stats over a sample of time. And it's a really nice way to look at weight stats. You make it really easy to read them and figure out what's going on with them. So I think it's a pretty good way. You can probably find a bajillion scripts out there on the internet that'll look at weight stats, though. If you don't want to use our scripts, which I don't know why you wouldn't.
If you went back to work as a production database administrator and your boss said, because as part of the deal for having you go back to work as a DBA, he said you can have two things, whatever monitoring tool you want and unlimited soup, salad, and breadsticks. So which monitoring tool do you pick and why?
Oh, good
question. I
question.
know, right? I'm putting you on the spot.
Me? I say the same thing every week. Every week I say I would go with Sentry One now, Performance Advisor. That is my all-time favorite monitoring tool. I like the way it looks. I like that it has that dark theme, so it doesn't blind me when I'm staring at it at 4 in the morning. Like, why is this broken? And I just really like the way that the charts and graphs don't give you a bunch of goofy stuff that you can't do anything about. And when you can highlight sections of the graph, and it'll bring you to the SQL that was running at the time, or bring it to the SQL that's currently running. It's just got a lot of nice. You can view execution plans, and it's got Plan Explorer built into it, so you can view execution plans right from your monitoring tool. You don't have to do a bunch of other goofy stuff to get your plans somewhere else, which is a shortfall of many, especially web-based monitoring tools, is that you have to download the execution plan, do something else, and click the XML. So that's
Tara,
my
how about
vote.
you?
Which tool?
Yeah.
I mean, I like Sentry One's Performance Advisor, but I've also used the Quest tools, Foglight and Spotlight. So I think they're all great tools, the ones that I've used.
I'd be like, just give me a tool.
A tool.
Let's see here. Dan says he's having the great debate of temp tables versus table variables. He hates to beat a dead horse. Good, then stop. He says, I believe but no, seriously, this will be still a debate topic in 10 years from now. He says, I believe it's best to use temp tables instead of table variables, but my team members disagree. Recompiles and stored procs always come up. You can fix that. Put your temp tables at the top. And they won't necessarily recompile. For more details on that, go read Paul White, temp table recompile. If you go Google for temp table recompile.
Temp tables and procedures.
Yeah. Oh my God, he's got a great blog post, like 4 of them, about plan reuse with those that are shocking. They're really good. Richie, Alexander wants to ask you, he says, what do you think about companies that adopt different sorts of NoSQL? How do you handle it all? Like sometimes they want Cassandra, Mongo, whatever. So why are they picking different kinds of databases, and what should you do about it as a DBA?
Well, those different databases do usually one specific thing really well, and they don't do other things at all, right? Yeah, if you do it at all, it's done pretty poorly. So that's why you'll have, if I need something for really fast reads, Mongo's really good for that. But if I need some relational data and I need to join between different tables and stuff like that, it kind of falls over a little bit on the reporting side. So that's why you'll see a lot of, hey, I need this tool for this and this tool for that. I know we talk about Elasticsearch. That's a great tool. If I want to go and search large amounts of text and things like that, I'm not going to put my relational data in there because it just doesn't make any sense to do that. So how do you keep up? Well, what do you need to know is really the question. So if you need to know about a document database, go look for document databases and start playing with some tools. If you need to know about graph databases, go look at a graph database and go look at some tools. I don't like to get into the details of it until I'm told this is what we're going with, right? Or if I'm doing some sort of POC. Until then, I just want to keep at a kind of high level of understanding what's going on with each tool, and then, hey, we're going to go with this. Then I start going pretty deep in the product.
The other thing to keep in mind as you start to spelunk around lots of multiple tools, some of these tools fold up. So if you want to read an interesting thing, search for RethinkDB. Why RethinkDB failed, and it was a company that was building an open source product, and they just folded up recently. It's a really interesting story behind it around how hard it is to build an open source tool and make it work scaled.
What's the name again?
RethinkDB, all one word, all lowercase. Are you trying to think about something other than SQL Server?
Like you said, it was an interesting story. I want to look at it.
It really is. It's
and they had a great. I mean, they had great founders. They were really super smart. They had a great team behind them. They had all this open source stuff coming in all over the place, and just this vibrant community, and just couldn't make it work financially. I mean, they even had NASA. I mean, NASA was putting it in their stuff. So it's not like people weren't using it. Just sometimes the financials just doesn't work out that way.
It's amazing to read the postmortem because so many people chime in comments and like, yeah, I use RethinkDB all the time, but I don't pay them $1 because everything's out there that's free and it works great. Oh, God.
Yeah, we interviewed the founders on Away from the Keyboard last year, and the community manager. And so we posted the community manager after they had folded, and we're like, you want to listen to this before we post this just to make sure you're good with it, and everything was good. So
were things like looking sunnier for them then, or were they kind of like, oh, no one's giving us money for this free thing?
Oh no, everything was the sky's the limit, right? I mean, you're not going to talk about the bad stuff, to a bunch of podcasters. I mean, why would you want to do that? No, we're hurting pretty good, Maybe we won't be around very much longer.
If I were working for me, man, I would be out of here.
Oh God! Don't use our product. Paul asks, I just got out of a meeting, well, thank God for that, where our uptime engineer told uptime engineer. What a great job title. I love it. That's cool. Richie is our downtime engineer.
Yes.
Where he told everyone that you can use Developer Edition without paying for licensing because we use TFS for development. TFS is a business application and requires licensing. Some of Microsoft's licenses, like SharePoint as an example, will include one SQL Server as part of it. So what you want to do is read more about that product's license. And they're usually production licenses. They're usually not developer either.
Yeah. I think TFS was standard, but I haven't been in that game for years. So, but it's usually just, like you said, the one. And that's it.
And that's it. And it's not like you really want a big bulky SQL Server for that either. I mean, you can live with a small one. says, I'm going to set up log shipping as a disaster recovery for our production server. What? That's amazing. We're doing sort of a weird version of that this week. We have a separate cube server with SQL Server Analysis Services. Do you know what's required for DR for analysis services? We're not using VMs, and my databases are large. Good.
No idea.
No idea. I've never even used SSAS.
Everything I know from analysis services is just from listening to the guys at ProData talk. It's like prodata.ie. They're out of Ireland. Just awesome, wonderful, friendly people. Carmen and Bob, I want to say. But the basic idea would be you just stand up another analysis services box over there, and when you fail over, you rebuild your cubes. No sense in keeping the cubes in sync across.
Right.
Richard says, oh, goodness. Richard says, I want to use, Richie likes this. Is it just that you like his name or you like his question?
I like his name. That's it. You got a great name, buddy. It means powerful ruler, and I'm pretty sure you are powerful in whatever you do.
And his last name is Seltzer, so his middle name must be Alka. I want to use table switches in SQL Server partitioning with sliding windows. I'm pretty sure I know Richard, too, come to think of it. He wants to do partitions with sliding windows, but apparently you can't do that if the table is a parent in a foreign key constraint. Is there any way to do switches or fast clearing out of partitions without dropping and re-adding constraints? Have you guys done partitioning with constraints?
Not that kind.
Yes, but I didn't do it. We didn't do sliding windows.
Yeah.
We didn't slide in the data.
Every time I had to do one of those projects, I didn't use foreign key integrity in it. And it didn't occur to me until just now. Like I never used parent-child foreign key integrity. We trusted the ETL process to manage that and make sure it was clean and pure, which of course is a bad idea. But you know, I had really smart, nice, trustworthy ETL guys who lived in a van down by the river. Tammy says, I have another SSRS question. I was looking for best practices for the more recent versions of reporting services, and I couldn't find anything recent. Can you recommend a resource?
Doug Lane.
Even that, not recent. Not recent.
Yeah, totally. Yeah.
Do we even know anybody who's using? So, like we just had at the Group Buy conference, Bert Wagner. If you go to groupbuy.org, Bert Wagner did a session on high performance SSRS, and right at the beginning, he's like, "Look, I haven't used SSRS in the last year or two." He goes, "This is just general performance advice," because people were asking him, how's it different in 2016? He's like, "I don't know. I don't know anybody who's doing 2016 SSRS. Not that it's bad. I just don't know anybody doing it."
Tableau.
Yeah, in a Tableau world.
Oh, interesting. Lee says, Microsoft wants us to apply service packs and cumulative updates and security releases right away. I am curious to your thoughts on that. What did you guys do when you were database administrators? Or you were managing databases?
You know, you gotta patch those dev and QA servers first, man. You can't just stick that on prod. That's my advice.
And then you let it bake for some period of time.
Yeah. You know, if you're super cool and you have like, you know, clusters or AGs, then you can patch some secondaries first or some dead servers first and let that burn in and then flip around and then do your other stuff. But the right away thing, cool for dev and QA and whatever UAT environment you have, not cool for prod because Microsoft updates will still break stuff. So something seems to go awry with just about every one of those SPs and CUs.
The best thing was breaking no lock. So one of the CUs broke no lock, and if you had it in development, you would never know because it's not like you're worried about concurrency in a dev environment. People are just running queries, and you expect locking to happen. So even when you bake it in for a while, it still becomes an ugly surprise. Niraj asks a question that I feel like I want to type through a latex glove. I need to perform an in-place upgrade from SQL Server 2008 R2, and it's a cluster. Want to upgrade the cluster to SQL 2012. And by the way, I'd like to convert them into always on. And I'm assuming he means always on availability groups. Any suggestions?
I am not a big fan of in-place upgrades in production. I've certainly done it in test environments to save us time, but never, ever, ever in production. And usually when I'm upgrading from one version to the next, I'm also switching hardware, or at least to another server. But if you're not going to be switching servers, just install a new instance and then do the configuration you want. Although if you're going to be moving to from a cluster to node from a failover cluster instance to availability groups, you're obviously going to need to do a bunch of work on that server. If you're doing in place, you're going to have to remove the cluster, add it back, and then set up availability groups. So I would not recommend doing that all on the production servers. You have no fallback plan.
And the other thing is that since you're on that version of SQL Server, you're probably on Windows 2008 or 2008 R2, and that's just like a bucket of crap for failover clusters. Windows Server 2012 and 2016 are much better, and God help you if you try to do an in-place OS upgrade, man.
Yeah, we did those in the test environment just to save time, and we're just 2 thumbs up if it worked,
Terrifying.
Robert has a question I love because I used to struggle with this myself. Robert says, I inherited a legacy system with a lot of dead code and tables. SysDM exec query stats fails me when tracking down which objects are being used. What's the best way to determine what's being used? Oh, there's so many ways to do this. I would probably push back and say, why? What are you going to do? Because best case scenario, you drop some tables. Worst case scenario, you break somebody's application.
Yeah, especially the code. It's not taking up space. It's not hurting anything just sitting there. I wouldn't go ahead and mess with it. If you really want to, get into it, then you set up some sort of auditing or some other monitoring just to see what runs over like the 30-day or 90-day period, and then get rid of anything that doesn't. But even then, it's not really guaranteed that anything is going to change for the better. You get rid of stored procedures that never run. They seem pretty harmless to me, like fingernails.
Yeah, there's a development philosophy where you want to delete as much code as possible. So early and often you want to delete code. So you're always looking to delete code, so that when it does go out, you're not having all this commented out code or code just doesn't run anymore. So typically I do a lot of that. I'll go ahead and I'll write a bunch of stuff. Oh, that didn't work at all. So you go in and you make sure it works. Then you do a check-in, and then you do a check-in deleting all the code. And typically that's how that would work. But a lot of people, they don't do that. They just kind of just say, oh, we moved something, and then the old stuff remains.
Like for tables though, like one thing that I used to do whenever I set up whenever I got inherited a server, I would look for table names that have like BK or back or a date on them, because that's usually someone like saying, okay, I'm going to do something stupid over here. Let me back up the table as is, and then if I need it again, because like especially when I was doing the e-discovery thing, you would sometimes have to make changes to the relativities configuration table, which is just a big long table with like the name and a value, and then like a SQL variant column to put in your configuration. And there were times when you had to make changes. You didn't want to mess anything up, so I would always select everything over into a table with like table name back with a date, so I would know what table was which. So that's like one thing that you can look for sometimes. There's a pattern that pops up where people make backup tables that are safe to ditch after a while.
He follows up and he says his biggest problem isn't space, but Visual Studio DAC pack deploy times. Yeah, it's not. DAC pack isn't known for speed and efficiency of deployment. That's your bigger problem there. If you wanted to performance tune that process, I'd actually look at switching processes. Because even if you have a bare minimum of tables, as your data file grows, you can continue to be screwed. Because sometimes the DAC packs will simply, in order to affect one alter table, they'll create a new table and shove all the data into it, then drop the old table. That can break all kinds of things, replication, security setups that you've done, so I'd want to be careful about that. Well, thanks everybody for hanging out with us this week. We will see you guys next week in office hours. Adios.